the military options that might exist, but the real key now is diplomacy. We've already seen a little while ago the government of India announcing a series of diplomatic measures against Pakistan. Will India's diplomatic strike work? Was it really, in the end, a glaring security and intelligence failure in Pahalgam that needs to be addressed? And who will be held accountable? And of course, how should India respond to Pakistan terror? Two special guests now joining me. Yashovardhan Azad is former Secretary Security Special Director at the Intelligence Bureau, and Vivek Kaju is former Secretary Ministry of External Affairs. Appreciate both of you joining us. I want first, Mr. Kaju, to respond to what you've just heard from the Ministry of External Affairs in terms of diplomatic measures being taken. No visas to Pakistani nationals, cancelling of the Indus Waters Treaty, stop at Atari-Wagah border. Do you believe these steps will work?
3 points. First, the Indus Waters Treaty being held in abeyance is unprecedented. Even during times of war, the IWT was not touched. I don't think it's going to have a practical manifestation immediately, but symbolically it's important because water is an important issue for Pakistan. So it is a signal to the Pakistanis. Second, the doors are being shut on the Pakistanis, but not entirely, because while the defense attaches have been removed, you would note that there was no mention that the weekly contact between the DGMOs has been suspended. I think that is a very, very crucial point, so that it is indicative that both sides, that the government of India wants some contact to be maintained between the armies. Third, as far as visas are concerned, again, it's part of closing the doors, the Atari border closing the doors. So this is the first step. I think the government needs to assuage public sentiment to some extent. So it has taken some of these steps, but that is not the real point. Just give me 1 second, Rajdeep. And that the point is that whenever there has, in the two previous cases, when India judged attacks to be unacceptable, it took kinetic action. Uri, Pulwama. I think this attack which should have been anticipated, because the Pakistanis made it abundantly clear after the Jafar Express attack, which they blamed India for, through that India had provoked the BLA to attack us. At that stage, the Pakistanis were quite clear, and I've written about this. So, in this case, I think what we are trying to do is to do a holding action, but ultimately, because this is an unacceptable attack, based on the past two precedents, I do not see how the public in India, or public opinion in India, will accept anything less than a kinetic action against the Pakistanis, the kind of kinetic action that the government will have to decide very, very carefully. But the precedents are there. And will the people be satisfied with what the Foreign Secretary announced today? I can assure you, no.
Okay. I'm going to come to the Balochistan point later, because that's an interesting point. Has Pakistan retaliated for what they believe was Indian involvement in that train terror strike that the BLA pulled off in Balochistan? But Yashovardhan Azad, you've worked carefully with intelligence. In all of this, while the focus is on India's diplomatic strike, it's on in some way assuaging public sentiment. There are questions about accountability, about intelligence failures. Should those be asked today or not?
Well, you know, this is a regular exercise, the intelligence failures, who was accountable. But right now, it's a make and break situation, Rajdeep, that is going to be held in a routine manner. Today, the question is, in 1.5 days, we have been waffling about many things. I think clarity should be there in what should be done now. And I totally agree with you when you talk about the options straight away. Let me give you 3 straight options. Let me ask you, what is the benefit of ceasefire, which we are having since 2021? It has helped the Pakistani troops to move about 70 to 80,000 on the Afghan border. It has helped them to commit savagery against the Balochis by diverting a large part of the army over there. It has given them tremendous respite to be able to train and send properly and arm all these Lashkar-e-Taiba coverts, whether you call them TRF or something. How is it benefiting us? Earlier on, whenever there were cross-border violations, the BSF used to pound their posts across the border. It is time to finish this kind of this exercise, this fraud, which is only helping. That is number one. Number two, the cost should also be made very, very high in covert ways, which we should push further. And number three, NIA, after I'm sure with the security grid we have, we'll be able to catch these guys, and then we should inform every world capital about their complicity and then do an official attack. This is a time when the entire world is with you, except perhaps Turkey or China, maybe one odd country. And if you don't attack now, take out those 12 or 13, Lashkar-e-Taiba and JM hideouts openly. Tomorrow, I think we'll be in a very sad position.
Easier said than done, of course. That it is high risk, but
Yes.
you're saying that is a risk worth taking.
It's a risk
Kaju,
Yeah.
Vivek Kaju, you mentioned about your belief that this could have been a retaliation for what happened last month in Balochistan, the Pakistan army embarrassed and chafing at the bit. Do you believe, therefore, we should have been prepared for Pahalgam? Is that a message in a way that you're sending? There should have been a recognition that the Pakistan army would be up to mischief.
Rajdeep, I entirely agree with what was said earlier, that this is a time for national solidarity. This is not a time for exhuming either the recent or the remote past. We all have to stand as one. But since you've asked me this question, I wrote an article. It's on record.
I saw it.
So
are you convinced that there is a link between what happened in Balochistan, where the Pakistani army blamed India, and what has now happened? Is that what you're saying?
That is what I was afraid of. That is why I wrote that it is possible that in the foreseeable future, the Pakistanis would engineer or sponsor a terrorist attack against us. You've seen it. I also wrote in that article, as you would have noticed, that the government of India would have taken note of this. Our agencies would have taken note of it. And I made some suggestions of what we should do, including putting the Pakistanis on notice and putting world capitals informing world capitals that if there is an escalation, that we've nothing to do with this BLA attack, but if there is an escalation from the Pakistan side, then it will be Pakistan's responsibility if the escalatory ladder is...
but how far... But that comes, here you've got Yashovardhan Azad saying we should be willing to go on an offensive. This is time for war in a way. Do you believe that that is possible? That's a realistic option between two nuclear neighbors?
Look, this is always a dilemma, but I do believe that under what is called the nuclear overhang, there is space for action. The Pakistanis, on the other hand, have always pressed the international community that it is much too dangerous for any kind of kinetic action, because the escalatory ladder can be used or will be invoked. My point has always been that the first step on an escalatory ladder is a terrorist attack like the kind which took place in Pahalgam yesterday. The world, we have, unfortunately, after the Pulwama attack, while we announced a doctrine of preemption, we did not press that doctrine of preemption. We did not make the world aware that, listen, this is our doctrine now. I do believe that at the right time, today is the time for the nation to stand as one, to be behind the government, to be with them on whatever decision they take. And I do believe that Mr. Modi and the CCS will be left with no option but to take some form of kinetic action. And
Okay,
with
so
that, the nation must stand firm. But
you're saying,
at the right time, we've got to make our doctrines known to the world. That is how major powers and a responsible power like India, a country which is the fifth largest economy, as we often say, on the path to being the third largest economy, behaves, conducts itself.
okay, can I get Yashovardhan Azad then to give a final word? Yashovardhan Azad, do you believe that these are risks worth taking, that this is a moment, or should one, is this a move for a gradual escalatory spiral? Today we've had a diplomatic strike, cancel the Indus Water Treaty, go up the escalatory ladder and see where it takes us. The Pakistanis are already denying any involvement.
Rajdeep, the savagery which has happened in Pahalgam is reminiscent of the Islamist hardline terrorist actions by the ISIS. The ISIS and these terrorist outfits will not understand your diplomatic parleys, will not understand your gradual calibrated response and things like that. It will appreciate a hard strike. You know, today the country is absolutely pulverized after what happened in the Mumbai attacks. Since then, we have never seen a carnage like this. If you don't respond now and you keep yourself, fearing the so-called nuclear blackmail, which is always behind your ear, Pakistan will always do it. But today is the time to strike. This is the way you can do it. Cut the ceasefire agreement. It doesn't help us in any way. Today, the world capitals are with you. This is an opportune time, and make it official and open. Rather not live with this kind of, regular attacks, especially of this kind, in which the nation is backing you and the international community.
We'll have much more with you and other guests in the days ahead, looking at specifics of how India should respond. Clearly, a red line is being drawn in the sand with what has happened in Pahalgam. But Vivek Kaju and Yashovardhan Azad, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with me here today.